Joy Huerta, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So I got an email a few months ago from Barry Weissler, and it said, I'm Barry Weissler. I have a project I'm working on. I think you'd be great for it. You get on the phone. I'm a failed theater kid. So first I think my little brother's just punking me.
Okay.
So then I'm like, sure, we can get on the phone. And I half expect my brother to get on the phone with me. And it's like, it's Barry. So he's like, Alicia. He's like, I've got a project. And I'm like, okay. I'm like half thinking he's going to let me star on Broadway. And he's like, it's Real Women Have Curves. Have you ever seen the movie? And I'm like, of course I've seen the movie. And he's like, well, I'd love you to be a co-producer on it. And it was like a dream come true.
Oh,
it was like a dream come true because I love the story. I love any project that puts a bunch of Latinas on stage together. I wonder for you, when you get the initial call or the initial email, is your first thought, I've never done this before? Or is your first thought, I can do that?
I don't know. I mean, first of all, thank you so much for having me. And I didn't understand what they wanted at the very beginning. They had been reaching out by at the end of 2019. I think it was Jack trying to find who to reach out from our team.
Noteworthy.
For people, just for a little bit of background, I'm a singer-songwriter. I'm in a pop band called Jesse and Joy. And this is new to me. Literally, it's a new thing for me. And one of the producers, Jack Noseworthy, as you were saying, was trying to reach out from either our management. Then I think I heard our PR. I was getting this information from a lot of places, but we also get a lot of invitations to a lot of things that are not necessarily something legit. Mm-hmm. And
so you had the same response I did.
I was like, well, let me see who this is. And finally, the right email got to me. My wife helped me Google them. And she's like, no, they're serious people. I think that they've done things for real in theater. Not that we wouldn't give this a chance to, someone who's new to theater, but if you're the newest person to you're the new addition, you want to make sure you're doing it with the right people. Mm-hmm. And Sergio Trujillo, our director and choreographer, and Jack Noseworthy came to Mexico, and we had a meeting in Mexico City, and we had Barry Weissler and Alicia Parker on a video call. And we were supposed to have a brief meeting. It was probably a Saturday. We were going to meet for a couple of hours. I think we met for 9 hours. It was just talking about the project and talking about life. And whenever they were pitching the idea, first of all, they were talking about the play, the original play from Josepina Lopez, and then they were talking about the movie. It just sounded so great. I was just like, oh my gosh, what exactly do you want, right? And they were like, well, sleep on it first. Is it something that sounds interesting? I was like, of course it sounds interesting. I just need to understand a little bit of what it is you need. Because I thought maybe they're going to do something experimental. I really didn't know.
Right, it could have been a pop album.
Exactly. I don't know. So I went back home. I watched the movie. And then I thought, how is this going to have any music in it? Because I was like, and I loved the movie, but I was like, I just needed to watch it once because I don't want to, I want it to be my own thing whenever it is I start writing for this. And then the pandemic hit. And so it was lockdown. And what I got to say, the silver lining from it is that I had much more time during the process to start adjusting and understanding what the whole process was going to be. Because it's such a different process than writing an album, like a pop album. It's different in the sense that I learned really early on that this is a work in progress until the day you open in Broadway. And I remember getting the book, reading it, and I was just so excited. And I started falling in love with the characters from early stages. And at some point, I remember Barry asking, how fast can you write? I was like, Barry, how fast can you give me a script? Because I didn't have one at the time. And he was like, okay, touche. And so we waited. And as soon as we got the first draft, I was like, I think as much as I love a challenge, I would love to have someone from the theater, someone from this world to help me out. I definitely, I don't want to be arrogant. I don't want to be cocky. I know writing music, but I've never done this, and I want to do it the best possible way. So they brought in Benjamin Velez, my co-composer and co-lyricist. It was like a love story from a chick flick, because we just met once and we instantly clicked. And the next time we met was to write a song. And it was insane because we had these long conversations for weeks, you know, during the process of writing. And we met in person probably 2 years after that. And it was like we knew each other. I mean, we did, but it was insane. But it was just everything was just flowing. Like everything about this particular project has been effortless in a way that it just feels like the stars are aligned. In a way, you know, how you were saying is like whenever you found out about this project, it's like it's meant to be. You know, it's our time to have this spotlight. And I feel like everything about the process has just been, it feels a little natural, you know what I mean?
It's so interesting to me to think about you collaborating with Benjamin, given that you have spent the majority of your professional career in what I would call a high stakes collaboration, given that it is with your own brother. And so I wonder what it was like to shift gears from that sibling dynamic to a dynamic with someone where, as you said, I mean, Benjamin is studied in musical theater.
Yes.
So you were bringing different skill sets to this process.
I've learned so much. He's been kind. He's been very generous in every possible way from his time and everything, because I'm a mom of 2 little ones. And, you know, the writing can be difficult. And like I said, it was a lot of it during pandemic. So having my toddlers screaming and laughing in the background. And it was like, okay, I have a window from, I don't know, 9 to 1. And he would be very accommodating. And he was just so kind in terms of like, I think I probably asked the same questions 1,000 times.
Like what? What were the questions?
Well, it was like, okay, once we finish writing this, then come the orchestrations. What are orchestrations? It's like the producing of an album. They were like, no, not necessarily, because, and it's like, it took me a while to understand, and now it's difficult for me to explain because in my mind they're still the same thing, but technicalities like that. And then it's like, well, then we need to do the dance arrangements. What's a dance arrangement? Are they going to be dancing on this? Well, if, what do you mean if? Like, but then it's not a dance arrangement. But no, but we need, you know what I mean? It's like the technicalities of it.
No, I don't. Tell me. This is so
yes,
interesting.
yes. But also, finally, when Ben and I had, you know, started working together and getting to know each other, it took me a while to know that I feel like we were not on trial, but I don't think we knew that it was not, how do I say, like it was, our contracts came in later on. But thankfully, because in my mind, it was never about signing it or doing it a contract. I was like, I'm writing a musical. Right. You know what I mean? For me, it's the accomplishment of what that means. And I remember Benjamin asking me, was like, have you signed a contract yet? But that was like 2 years in. I was like, oh, interesting. No, I haven't. But we had already written like 15 songs that they absolutely loved. And I was like, I wouldn't worry too much if I were you, because it's like, you know what I mean? Like they love the songs.
No, I don't know what you mean. I am so business that I am like, you are freaking, I'm like, I have to get your entertainment.
See, that's my artistic brain. And I was just like totally fine with it because again, I was doing it for the love of what we were creating. And I'm still doing it that way. And I remember the first batch of songs that they kind of were testing us out doing. We did Flying Away, Oye Muchacha, Adios Andrés, and Life is Like a Dance. And so to give everyone context, Flying Away is the song that our main character sings.
It's her I Want song.
It's her want song. Like those technicalities and those terms of like the lingo. Then there's an 11 o'clock or something. Isn't that what it's called?
I only know the I Want
song.
Okay,
you threw me all like, oh, she knows these terms. It's like the want song. And I was like, oh my God, can you explain that a little bit more? And then I was like, oh, like, I just can't wait to be like.
Yes, I literally am telling you as the protagonist what I want.
It's like, it's that it? It's like, yeah, from The Lion King. Like my reference were Disney movies. But I think I was understanding the lingo. And Flying Away does that. Is like, what does she want? Who does she want to be? And I was home and I was playing in the playroom with my kids, and I bought them this little adorable piano. And it sounds so bad. It's just like, clink, clank, clong, but it's so pretty and they love it. And I started, like, I had the idea of flying away in my mind, and I turned around. The only thing I have is that hideous piano sound. And I mean, I don't know if you heard this song yet, but it's like, bum, bum.
Oh,
bum,
it's
bum,
my
bum.
favorite
Oh,
song in the
yeah.
entire show. I also think it is, while it is very hard to sum up sort of the Latina experience, I think that you have some lyrics in that song that are going to end up with women tattooed to it on their torsos, specifically the lyrics, "They gave up so much so I could have more. And if I don't go, then what was it for?"
Yeah.
I don't have the experience that a lot of the women I interview in Latina to Latina have, where they're first gen and there's a lot of pressure at them at home to be doctor, lawyer,
Right.
accountant, so that they can, have a steady income and provide for their family. I'm of that next generation where my dad did that so that I could have chances like this.
Right.
But that tension is still there, and that sense of responsibility to the sacrifices others have made is still there. And I wonder for you, the moment that you were drawing from personally to write Flying Away.
My experience was different as well. My mom is, well, she was the immigrant in Mexico. She went to Mexico. She never looked back.
From a country called Wisconsin.
Yes, exactly. And at home, it was like we were living in a little bubble because dad was always out at work, but mom was giving us like this whole experience, like the other part of the culture that we grew up with. And we were living day to day. I mean, my dad was a pastor and he had so many debt, and it was like we were moving houses a lot because whenever it was time, like whenever they would raise the rent, we would have to move and find a different place. So for me and for my brother growing up, music became our everything, and it literally saved our lives. Like, it literally saved my life. And I think without even knowing, whenever I started writing, it was like writing my own path almost. Like I was like forging something without even knowing it. And I feel like in the sense, like I can relate because I had that responsibility of my family. Like whenever we started out, we became the main providers for the family.
Young.
And that, yeah, I was 18, and that shifts the whole dynamic in the house. It's like you have all these responsibilities, but at the same time, this is my house, these are my rules. It's there's not a lot of congruencia, but the dynamic's off in a way, you know? And growing up in Mexico City with a Mexican father, it was a very macho kind of upbringing. You know, porque yo digo, porque soy tu padre, etc. And his view of women. You know, my mom was he made sure that he was very submissive. He was trying to raise me to be strong and independent. Again, muy incongruente. But at the same time, it's like, you know, you're growing up, you don't know where to fit all this. But writing Flying Away, I feel it's something that we can all relate to, because in a way, aren't we all at some point trying to escape everyone else's expectations and grow into our own, to find our own voice, to find our own path in life? And to me, that little piano sound, and I'm going to show it with you later, but to me, that tension of how it started, because it was a bus stop song first. It was going to happen at a bus stop. It doesn't happen anymore. It happens a lot in theater. I learned that. Everything changes. I just wanted it to have that drive, that tension of like feeling like in a loop, you know? And our director at some point requested that we change some of those sounds. But to me, the fact that it was so repetitive in the beginning, like dun, 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 dun. I mean, she's like, the first lyric we wrote for that, it was a little different from what we have now, but it was like going nowhere every day, stuck inside my mind, when I could be going anywhere and leave it all behind, or something like that. But that was, to me, that was the purpose of the song, is like, she felt stuck. I felt stuck many times in my life. I felt like I could be doing so much more, but they're kind of clipping my wings without knowing that they're doing it, because of course they don't want to do that. They're my parents. And I feel like in a way that was how I was seeing Anna, but I'm also a mother now. And at the same time, I understand the parents in this story. And
isn't that wild how parenthood would do that for you?
So crazy. But you know what? I feel like we managed to find a way in our story to, because I remember mentioning to everyone from the very beginning, because the first Carmen, the first mother that was in paper, she was a little angrier and a little, like everyone was mentioning it. I just remember saying from the very beginning, I think she's my favorite character.
Mm-hmm.
I understand where she's coming from. I understand what she's trying to say. She means well. You know what I mean? And I wasn't looking at it from a mother's point of view. I was just looking at it thinking, I think I've known many people like her growing up. And I just feel like she doesn't know how it is that she wants to protect. She's doing it the way she knows, and it's keeping everyone here. But at the same time, it was like, she can get away with murder. She says all these things. You know, it's like she's so, she gives me so many oh my God moments, but she can get away with it. And then we have Justina Machado playing her, which is like the perfect combination. And writing for these characters has been joyful, has been pleasant, has been unexpected. And it was funny because whenever we did this first batch of songs, I remember that's the first time I felt the energy shifted with the producers. I felt like that's the first time I realized that I was on trial without knowing. And they just fell in love with these songs. Oye Muchacha is our last song of the first act. And I delivered a song. I was not thinking theater. And I remember the director panicked for a second. And I was like, no, but keep in mind, we can just put in whatever it is we want, make it go in or out. And I was like, okay. And it ended up happening that he was like, oh, because he understood my vision as much as I was trying to understand his. And it's just been so fun to create a sound for each character and to create like a little micro universe for the songs that the women sing together. And then give a sound to Ana, our main character, who's the youngest out of the bunch of women. So she gets to have a poppier sound. And, you know, Carmen was dreaming of being a mariachi. So we're giving her a little bit of flair in that area. So
which is
like
also
she gets
so
to be
perfect
that.
for you, Joy, because only you could do that.
No.
Right? Like who else could do a little folk, a little Mexican, I mean, as you've said before, you have traveled all of Latin America, right?
Yes.
That is an experience that most people have not had. And so in some ways, your ability to integrate those sounds
I have a big box of tools.
Yes, it is a product of this decade. You said something profound I want to make sure we go back to, which is that music literally saved your life. What do you mean that it literally saved your life?
It did. I feel like I look back, I don't know what my life would have been if I hadn't pursued music. I just feel like it opened up the world for me. It fed me. That's what I mean. It literally saved my life because it really did. It also to my family. It's like sometimes I've been so emotional today. That's why I'm saying, to me, it's a miracle that out of nothing, you can create and you can change lives, starting with mine. Sorry.
No, I mean, it's interesting because for obvious, the show is so joyful. And do you need a tissue?
And here I am crying.
This is why we call it Llorona, not Latina.
And you bring joy to cry.
This is fundamentally a joyful show. It's a celebration. It's family. At the end of the show, everyone is on their feet having a celebration. But there's also heavy stuff in there.
There is.
About family and expectations, and also about immigration. It's very telling to me that this is set, 3 decades ago, and some of the topics are as relevant today as they have been.
Or even more.
Yes, you've been an advocate for migrant rights. I think of the song that you wrote with your brother, Un Besito Más, and And that song, much like the songs in Real Women, I think you managed to capture immigration without flattening it, which is that I think sometimes we flatten the story of immigrants and migrants to this country as they were just so in love and so in pursuit of the American dream that they came for that. And it's like, no, some people didn't want to leave. Some people really wanted to stay home, and home was not a possibility. And then there's also, I love also like all of the bird. I think the fact that you have flying away, and then you have if I were a bird, this idea of like a different imagining where we pick ourselves up and go and are free to come and to go, requires a real understanding of what it means to be an immigrant.
Thank you so much. It means the world to me that you see it that way, because I remember sitting with the producers and the writers at the very beginning, because there were many other, like, we were all aligned in this vision, and I was like, I just need to make sure that we don't narrow this to a very tragic way of like
Pobrecito Latino is what I always call it.
No, and I didn't want it to be like, there are so many different stories. I know so many of them. And I know many people that didn't have a choice, that didn't want to leave, that would give an arm to go back. You know, it's just circumstances. And that doesn't take away from the fact that we're a joyful people. It doesn't take away from the fact that we laugh at our tragedy and we turn it into a joke. And that's what we see these women do. You know, that's
part of their survival.
Exactly, because that's exactly what we wanted to do. And it's music to my ears if you say it, because, you know, then you mentioned bird and flying away. You have this girl saying she wants to fly away because she can actually do it. She knows she just has to be brave and make that decision and take that leap, versus a person that is like, I could just imagine what that would be like because my possibilities are different. You know, and you have two girls that are the same age, but you have the two sides of the coin. You know what I mean? And that's something that I'm loving about theater, is that like it's a little domino effect. Every single thing that we do here is going to affect later on in the story. But yes, like you were saying, to me, the immigration part of it is so important because, like you said, I mean, even 5 years ago when I came on board this project, I didn't know, first of all, how long it takes to get here. And I've heard that this is a very fast process for us. Secondly, I never in a million years thought that we were going to be where we are today. And it's insane that at some point early on, we were making jokes because this takes place in 1987. And we were like, oh my God, it's going to be so funny to say now because many things haven't changed. But then a lot of things started happening. I was like, this is not funny anymore, you guys. Like, maybe we should just take this out. You know what I mean? But as much as the story is taking part in a very political, like heavy political environment, at the same time, what's coming out is like the family's love, the family's story. And I think that that's what captured me the most whenever I was approached to do this, because I felt like that's one thing I know, right? Mm-hmm. I'm a daughter, I'm a mother, I'm a sister, I'm a friend. And that's something that I can bring into absolutely every song that we're doing for the show or that we could possibly write for this show. And I've been very, very lucky to have many friends that I called many times during the process and be like, can I pick your brain for a second? Mm. And I just feel like we need to do justice in terms of telling the stories of so many people that hopefully will see themselves up there represented and just literally see themselves and be like, that's my story, that's me.
You have the title song, Real Women Have Curves. And I think because of the title, sometimes it's easy for people to imagine that only in the context of body image and kind of flip it and talk about curves as the curves that life throws our way. The things that are unexpected, the challenges we face, and our being who we are, being how we face those challenges. For you, what do you think of as the biggest curve that life has thrown your way?
That's a great question. You can tell I've never answered this before. That's why I have to think about it. I don't know. I feel like many turning points in my life. One of them was definitely the fact that, like I said, music saved my life and just came in and I was able to do this for a living. there have been many steep turns. Is that what you would say? In terms of like in the music industry, you know, you go in young and with those eyes of innocence, I guess. And then you meet the industry side of the music business, or the business side of the music business. And I just feel like there have been key moments. You mentioned Un Besito Más. My dad passed away probably like almost 12 years ago. I think that was a huge, huge curve that was thrown my way. I think, like in the song, I try to turn it into something positive because, like I mentioned, he was trying to raise me to be so bold, independent, and in a way, trying to honor his memory. I'm trying to become that person. But, I mean, always missing him, right? But there's also been beautiful curves, like meeting my wife, having kids. And I'm just thinking out loud, like all the ones, you know, work-wise, personally. And I think the latest big curve that has been thrown my way is this musical happening when it's happening, and really getting a chance to, you know, put Latinx people up on a stage, deserving to be heard, because we've had so many stories to tell for so long, but we're finally getting it up on a very important stage, and I just feel like it couldn't be more poetic to have this play come out this April.
It's interesting. I was going back to I was rereading the Instagram post you wrote when you let the world know that you were expecting a daughter. And by the way, you had a wife. Yeah. And I have such respect for you, the way that you chose to set parameters around your own privacy and to tell your story and to decide what the actual headline was of your story. Even there's a note in that caption that's like, to my dear friends in the press, I will be telling the story as I want to tell it when I want to tell it. And then when, you know, you've done some interviews with your wife. I watched like a Telemundo special for Pride Month, and I've watched what it seems like an evolution in how you choose to wear this identity. Is that fair? I think it feels like you were feeling your way through it.
Okay, and I'm not trying to tie this back to the play.
Please.
I swear. But it's a good example.
Are you getting a bonus for every time you tie it back to the show?
No, I wish. Cha-ching! We have this character in our play who is born with a set of skills and perhaps doesn't know what she has, right? And she's navigating life in automatic, almost, doing all these things that she's been having to do since she was a little girl. And we see her arc in the play. And then she starts learning about the set of skills that she has, and she's starting to put them to use knowingly as she's learning from her peers, the people around her, her community, her family. And we get to see that arc, right, throughout the play. I feel like I had to grow up really fast in a way, like her sister Estela. I swear to God, I'm not doing this on purpose, but it's like a great example. Yeah. But in a way, her sister just had to be older for the family until they had Anna in the States. And I feel like for me, in a way, it was kind of similar. I think having to grow up so fast and started working out when I was 18, doing it professionally, the only way that I've known how to do it all my life, and growing up in the public eye. So when I was in my 20s and I'd be back from tour, I had some friends that I would just like see occasionally. And I would hear these experiences, like normal experiences of growing up. Mm-hmm. I had no idea what they were talking about. Like I was working every single day. I was living different experiences, of course, entirely different ones. So I feel like in a way I was in a fast lane on one part of my life, but I was like baby steps on the other one. Mm-hmm. And I think that I'm just a late bloomer. I just feel like that's what happened. I had to grow up really fast in terms of responsibilities. But growing up in a house with a pastor as a father and a pastor as a mom, and you know, you're growing up in a church, then you're thrown into the world, your brain just starts expanding. And I feel like mine was not as, or much more elastico than when my parents were, when my dad was. And it was just getting to know myself, I guess. And it was just like, I feel like it was literally my coming of age story, but unfolding a little later in life. And I mentioned this as one of the biggest curves in my life because it was maybe bigger than a curve. What would be bigger than a curve? It was just like a turning point for me. Mm-hmm. Because for me, sexuality has always been something, like, I just feel like we're all a little queer. You know, it's just until I had to be there to be like, oh yeah, I'm definitely there.
It's funny. I got so accustomed to hearing you sing Flying Away that the first time I got to hear Tatiana sing it, I realized there's something about the way you sing it that is very much of our age and of the fact that we are parents, right? Like there is almost some nostalgia to it because we have flown away and we do know what is on the other side of that. And we do know that the risk was worth the reward. And to hear her sing it and
hits different.
It hits different because she doesn't, I mean, just she, the actress in her own life, she doesn't know yet. She is not sure that this is all going to work out. She is not sure that she's going to fly away and actually land.
But it's really interesting that you're mentioning it because I was just talking to her this morning. Do you know how many people we have in our crew that are doing their Broadway debut? Mm-hmm. It's like so many of them, like maybe 50-50. Mm-hmm. And I was telling her, I was like, there's some innocence that all of the ones of us that are having like this experience as a first time, there's like a lot of innocence that we're bringing to it because there's no expectation. Right. We're not trying to prove anything. We're just trying to show our version of like this character, our version of this story, our version of like, we're just doing it for the art. We're doing it for what it represents. We're doing it for what it means to us. Like there's still no, don't get me wrong. I mean, of course there's ambition and whatnot around it. It's the fact that, do you know what I'm trying to say? Like we're approaching it from a very pure place.
I do when it comes through in the actual
show.
But
I see that in Tatiana. Yeah. You know what I mean? That when she's singing it, yes, when I sing Flying Away, I also get a little nostalgic, but I'm also thinking, that's going to be my kids one day. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like we have a different mindset. And for her, it's just like, I see her and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's going to do her. You know what I mean?
Yes, it is the lyrics. If I can prove her wrong, maybe my dreams wouldn't have to be small. Because I do. I mean, one of the things that comes up all the time in these interviews, and this is not the way I was raised, so it's always interesting to me, is sort of this idea of like, those dreams aren't for people like us. Like that thing that you want to do, you want to be an actress, that's not for people like us. You want to be a singer, right. That's not for people like us. And I think part of what you're saying is it's instead of telling, it's showing. No, this is for people like us. Broadway shows are for people like us. Starring roles in Broadway shows are for people like us. Being a Mexican composer is for people like us. We can do all these things. Pick a thing. You can have it. You can do it. But that feeling that all of us have, like, well, then I really better do it right.
Yeah, I don't feel that yet. Thank God. Like, I don't think any of us have that mindset. We had the first reading pre to rehearsals yesterday. Mm-hmm. And if you could have just felt the energy in the room, it was just so magical. No expectations, no, I don't know how to explain it. It was just like, we're excited. Like, we're excited for people to see this. We're excited to put it on its feet. Everyone's going to be nervous. Don't get me wrong. We're all going to be nervous. We want everyone to do their best, and we all want to do our best. But it's like, we're not trying to be anything. You know what I mean? It's like we're just doing what we know how to do. We're giving you our 1,000% of it. And it was beautiful to see the actors reading through it. Some of them, it was their first time sitting through the whole read through. And their first reaction, because it's like normally you have everyone singing the one song and everyone singing the other song, but then there's bits and pieces when they have to be quiet and let the other characters sing. that was their first time seeing everyone else. There were so many tears in the room. But so it was like tears of, you can see they're relating to some of these stories. You can see that it's our own. You can see that we've made it our own and we see ourselves reflected. So in a way, we're doing it with love. It's like almost as if we're cooking something for someone and we're just saying, this is my best dish and I can't wait for you to try it.
Joy Huerta, thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
Thank you so much. I could just stay here for hours.